At this point, Ghostbusters is pretty much complete. Everything works well, most of the bugs have been fixed, I've put a lot of polish onto it, and I'm ready to put it out any day now. But a lot of what I did over the past week has been things like boss battles, which I don't really want to show off. I'd rather let the player get surprised when they see it. So instead, what I'm going to do is a brief post-mortem on the actual process, on what went right, what didn't go so right, and what I'd do differently. Now, you guys all know this actually went very well overall, so I'm going to start with the things that didn't go so well. One of the biggest challenges that I've had throughout this project is that I used a lot of literal strings, which for you non-programmer types, that means in the programming, I would say research proton. And then later on in the code, I would say, have you researched proton? The problem here is that if I change the name of that research, it breaks the code in a lot of different places. And while it was always a quick fix, it was very easy to miss. There were a lot of bugs that I didn't catch until these last few days because it's a hard thing to track. Another thing that went wrong was the balance. I don't know how the hell I could have missed this, but I didn't think about how difficult it would be to balance a team of 1 to 4 people with random skills with a choice of 1 to 4 different weapons. Yeah, it was not easy to balance. I really wouldn't say it's balanced at the moment either, but what I've done was I've tried to skew all of the balance into the player's favor. Rather than having challenge, I wanted to focus on letting the player have fun, even if that means that it's a little balanced in his favor. The last thing that really was troublesome is that my original design didn't quite work. It ended up a lot like Superman Returns. It had a strong engine, it had a lot of potential, but the actual progression throughout the game just didn't feel good. It felt like you were grinding for level. So over the last week, I added the PKE into the game. You can actually drive through the city, track down bosses, and if you can capture all of the local legends, as I call them, then you can save the city. So there's an actual winning condition now, and it flows a lot better at this point. Now for what went right. Pretty much everything. At the beginning of development, I had a really good string of luck. I was able to get the city streets up and running in 2 days, which meant all of my really difficult steps were already taken care of. At this point, there was very little risk. I had 17 breaking points when I started this project. It turned out 16 of them were actually implemented. I had not expected to get nearly that much done in this 30-day period, but things worked out very well. Another thing that went well was that I did a lot of work early on to make things expandable or changeable so that when I needed a new gun, I can just drag a new gun object down, I attach the ammunition, I put in damage numbers, and I could change the weapons easily. I did the same thing for skills, for the shop, for the research. I had structures in place so that everything could be implemented quickly. Everything was easy to make and very little had to change in the code base in order to implement these new items. This was very convenient for adding stuff. Another thing that went really well was the stress levels throughout this month. For Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, I put way too much work into the first 2 weeks. By the time we were hitting week 3, I was already feeling stressed out. I was already sick of hearing the looping soundtrack. With this project, I did a lot shorter work sessions. By doing this, by relaxing in between, by taking days off, I was able to keep myself in a much better mental place in doing this whole project. The last thing that went very, very well is that I did a good job of keeping track of what I could actually accomplish and what was worth cutting. There were a lot of things that I was working on that would have been really cool and would have been very helpful to the game, but they would have taken too long. They didn't go in smoothly. I was losing a lot of time. I was able to replace it with something easier, use the breaking points to say this is an easier solution. This is something I can do in 30 days. By cutting out a lot of these features, I avoided a lot of unneeded stress, and I saved a lot of time by only focusing on what I actually have time to do. So what would I do differently next time? Well, I'd probably screw it up bad. Things went unbelievably well this time, and I can't question that there was luck involved there. Because I had a strong start, everything went very smoothly. But what I did learn is that by focusing on the potential content, by creating a base gun that you can customize, by creating ghosts that you can build on, you can speed up the later parts of development. Even when I needed to go into building bosses which don't function anything like the normal ghost battles, it was easy. The other thing I learned is don't waste too much time on any one feature. There were a lot of things that I wanted to put into that game, but they would have taken too long. Right now, I have a great game. I have something that I'm extremely proud to show off that I'm happy to send to people. Because I was willing to make the decisions early on to cut this feature, that it's not worth this amount of effort, I was able to focus on the important things and end up with a fantastic project.